Welcome to the Crafty Mini. So this is for the competition that I mentioned in last week's video. This is what I'll be painting. So this is from Rum and Resin printed on Etsy. The competition is you just got to do a large scale monster. So I like the Nurgle aesthetic, and so this is what I'm going for. The official GW one, I'll put a picture up of it. It's a bit too comical for me. It's got a silly grin. Also the flesh looks a bit like fabric, almost like it's clothing. It's a bit too saggy, and I don't think it's monstrous enough. And that's just my own personal taste. It's not gross enough to be like a Nurgle demon. So I found this alternate sculpt and absolutely fell in love with it. It looks demonic. It's got a horrific face, and it's absolutely disgusting with everything that's bursting out of its belly. I've not added anything onto this. This is all part of the sculpt. All I've done is trim the base down a little bit so it'll fit on this plinth, and added a bit of texture paint just around the edges, because we'll be doing something cool with the base when you see the final shots. So it's had dark grey base coat sprayed all over, and then a very light dusting of light grey, sort of like a zenithal. And then all I'm going to do to start with is, so like we practiced on the previous video with that Chaos Obliterator, my sort of version of it. I'm going to go through now, and I'm basically going to pick out all the shadow areas. So I've got this camo green from Pro Acryl, and I'm just going to go through and pick out all those darker areas, because like we did with the previous video, I'm going to build up the sort of translucent layers of the skin, and hopefully at the end of it you'll agree it looks like a really sickly and sort of necrotic sort of flesh. And one thing I'll say, that's going to be sort of the main sort of focus of the video. I'm not going to show you all the footage of doing all the little tiny details like the little tentacles and things. I'll explain what I did to them, but it's just to show so you can see my work process from my theory to this is the final sort of product, and the little things that I've changed here and there. So next I've got a slightly lighter green, and I'm just going to use that on the raised areas, and it'll mix in, so we are going to have a bit of definition with the shadow, and then so effectively green is that initial base layer as we go through. Really simple, easy method, and quite thin down paint, so the zenithal priming should also help as well, so it'll help accentuate the light and darker tones all over the miniature. I'm hoping as well people are seeing this mini and agree that it is. I think it's absolutely brilliant, this sculpt. Truly disgusting, absolutely vile, and again, as I was mentioning in the previous video, that's what GW stuff should be. If you're gonna go, if your setting's grimdark, go all in, man. Go for it. I understand they can't, because it's got to be safe and you've got to cater to a wider audience, but it's a shame. This is why I wish they'd allow proxies still in their games. Maybe not at tournament level, but at least in the stores, because you could share this with people and show them, this is what a more chaos corrupted, disgusting army should look like. It should be full grimdark, and lean heavily into it, where as much as or as little as you can. Right, so as I mentioned with the end of the last video, I found that the sort of off-white bright ivory was too much of a stark contrast for the flesh, and I wanted this to feel a bit more necrotic. So what I've done is I've added the ivory into the light green mix, and again we're just going to put this all over, just as a very quick overbrush, leaving all the recessed areas. And then because it's a little bit thinner as well, it'll still have the shading from the darker green come through and look lighter on the raised areas as well. And this is the sort of core undertone that we'll be building from in the translucent layers, like I did on the previous week's video. So get this all over the flesh, and then go from there. So as you can see here, I'm just sort of dabbing on with the I've added more of the grey green because I want a little bit more warmth in the flesh, because a lot of these greater demons that you see, especially the Nurgle ones, they're very green for me, a bit too green. I think they should look a bit more sickly and a bit more pallid flesh tone. So I'm going for the sort of concept that you would assume maybe this was a normal human at one point that's just been overly corrupted, and has just got bigger and more disgusting and more diseased as time's gone on. I don't like the comical green. I want this to look pretty disgusting when you see it finished. So that's why I'm sticking for this more sort of Caucasian tone initially, and then again we're going to build up on these layers as we go. And then this is where I start having fun with it. So I'll be honest, it's a very labour-intensive process, but it's a lot of fun. And especially, and again, with a mini like this, with the sculpting and all the cool little bits of detail on it, it's loads of fun to paint. So you'll see on the mini, there's still those bits of green coming through. You've got that green hue, and now we're going to build upon that more of a normal sort of Caucasian skin tone. So I've got more of the grey-green mixed in, and we're now just going to build up all the highlighting areas. So like we did on the test piece last week, this is going to be very thin down paint. So all I do is I make sure the paint's really thin down. When I get a load on my brush, I just wick off the extra moisture on a bit of tissue paper, and then just push the pigment around from there and just build up. And you'll see not all the time am I doing like full paint brushes. I'm dotting, I'm dabbing, I'm doing little scratches, and this is all just because with the paint being so thin, it's going to be more translucent when it's dry, and this is just going to build up all that texture and detail that I want the skin to show off. Because on this miniature, that is the main focal point, is all those little bits of muscle, the rolls of fat, all the little pustules and the weird flesh, and just building this up over time. And as I mentioned, it is laborious, but if it's a mini, if you've got your heart set on it and you're enjoying it, you'll just crack on, and before you know, a couple of hours have passed. And then here we're going in for a second layer with this translucent, and just building up again. And you can see I'm being very patchy, very sketchy, and also the paint itself, because it is so thin down, is also patchy as well. And then bear in mind this is on its second layer. It probably doesn't look like it's had anything put on there yet, but these layers, as I say, will slowly build up. And you can see I'm not being very neat with it at the moment, just picking at anything that's raised around, like the gash in his side, and obviously all the little wrinkles around the teeth and things, and the gums that are on his stomach orifice, I suppose is the thing to call it. But yeah, just building up the translucent layers. Right, so at this point I just want to redefine some of the shadows. So what I've done is gone back to the original green, thinned it right the way down, and I'm almost using it as a glaze / wash, and I'm just hitting the most deepest recessed areas, all those wrinkles and rolls of fat in the flesh, sort of under like where his chest is, that's overhanging onto his belly, his back in particular. There's a lot of cool little creases and things there, and then under the chin and whatnot. And this is because it's very thin down, it will slightly stain the two layers of transparent flesh tone that we've done, but it'll just, again, it gives that little bit more sickly, disgusting sort of vibe, and it just makes the miniature itself stand out a bit more. And these are the sort of extra things that I do on a mini that, like this, is for a competition, or if it's something that I really want to paint and I'm enjoying painting, I'll do those extra few little steps as well, because it's just something I want to push a little bit more. And if it's something I'm going to have on display as well, it's just something I'll do all these extra little steps and make it stand out a bit more, because You know, sometimes these little things, they do add those little bits of visual interest when you're looking at them, but also when they're not on there, if the paint job's good enough, it won't detract from it anyway. But it's little things that I'm doing that I'm enjoying putting on this mini, and it, like here on the back in particular, it's making everything stand out that little bit more, all those little creases and cool little things that the sculptors put into the miniature. Right, so back again with the translucent layers. This time I'm concentrating on the highest points and where I want the focal point to be, which is obviously his face, and for me the sort of that bulge at the top of his belly before it goes into the mouth that he's got there. So I'm just taking my time now going through, so as I've done with the other layers, and just building up a bit more of the transparency of that flesh tone all over. So the top of his head, his rather chubby sort of neck that he's got, the top of his chest, and then the belly, and that's where I want the focal point to be on this piece. And at this point as well, I'll be picking out so the top of his shoulders, because they're going to be more prominent and close to a sort of light source that's above him, and any little folds of skin that need picking out, anything like that. And this is where it's just one of those, it's patience, take your time, and practice makes perfect. If if you've done this a lot, and you, like Welsh always says when we've done our podcast, it's finding that sort of zen place while you're doing these little things. If you're there and your mind's in it, your time will just absolutely flow past, and you won't be aware of it, and you just whacking the paint down and not actually worrying too much about it. And a lot of this is just muscle memory, and it comes, as I say, with patience and time. Right, so for all the little pustules that are over him, so what I've started with is a heavily, the same sort of ratio with the skin, heavily watered down yellow, and this is going all over the pustules that are on his skin, and a little bit over in the areas around them as well. There's almost as if like the skin sort of, there's a creep of disease underneath them. And then what we'll do is, once this is dry, because it'll go a lot more translucent, and the coverage, you won't actually see it won't be as bright as it is there when it's first gone on, and then we'll go in with the actual yellow and pick out the actual bumps of the pustules themselves, just to make it stand out. And it just adds to that sort of, again, those layers of skin, and the fact there's this disease underneath everything, and where it's coming to the surface in these sort of like big zits or warts and things, that's where it's hitting, and you can see that it's really bright and yellow and sickly. Right, so I mentioned this last week, this is one of my favourite paints, and it's the Army Paint True Blood. So I'm going in now with that little slightly thinned down, just picking out a few key areas, and then we'll be using it as a thinned glaze to bruise up all around where the gums sort of fold into the flesh around that gaping maw that he's got on his belly, and just picking out all these little bits. And it's a lovely paint to work with, and when you thin it down and you push and pull it over the model, you get this nice staining effect. And then where it's thicker and it's pulled, it goes like ultra glossy, like True Blood, and it just really does look nice, and it sets the model off. And then we're basically just going on whacking this all over where I need it. So where like a tentacle's punching out the skin as well, I want the skin around that to be bruised, like it's forced its way out, and it's quite painful. So it'll get a watered down sort of glaze of this as well. But in particular, it's the mouth on his actual belly. Right, so something that I learnt from last week's test piece, the Agrax Earthshade and Seraphim Sepia mix was a bit too heavy and stained a bit too much. So what I'm going to do is just stick with the sledge sauce on this one. It stains it ever so slightly. It looks a lot more severe when it first goes on, but as it dries, it lightens a lot. but it's just picking out all the little details and things that are on the miniature that you perhaps can't quite see at this point. So when I come to put the wash over that pectoral flabby muscle just here, it looks quite flat, but when this wash goes on, because the liming medium makes it run into everything, you actually see all the little folds and the little extra sort of stretch descending bits of skin that's actually on the sculpt. And this is just a nice way of just bringing all those layers together and just making all those extra little details pop that little bit more. Now, as I mentioned, we are concentrating on the skin for this video and how that comes together. But this clip I've left in because it's something when you're painting a bigger miniature as well. So while all that skin, that wash is on there, sometimes I'll just hit it with a hairdryer. Other times, like I'm doing now, I'll let it dry, but while it's drying, I'll paint another part of the miniature as well. And it's one of the little things that I enjoy about doing larger scale minis or busts. There's a lot of areas you can work on at once, and I never feel like there's any time wasted. So on this, I'm just picking out all the little tentacles. These are going to be quite pinkish until we get to the weird gross worms that are coming out of his gut at the bottom. But yeah, it's a nice little byproduct, I find, of painting the larger scale, that while you're waiting for something to dry, you can go and work on something else. Sometimes as well, it's actually nice to go and paint a different part of the miniature, I find, because as I'm trying to get the idea in my head of how the colours are going to come together, sometimes I have to just, even if it's just block them out in the base colour and don't worry about all the highlights, just so I can see and look and go, is that the right balance that I want? Should I go, like in this case, I was wondering, is the pink, was it going to be strong enough, or should I go down more of like a greenish, more comical route, as if it's like an unnatural worm that are popping at these little weird tentacles that are popping out of his skin. So it's something I find it helps, and you'll see in my videos where sometimes there'll be a step that I've not spoke about, but you can see that it's already been painted on the miniature, and it's just so I can get an idea of the final sort of colour scheme, and is it something that I'm going to mess with or change a little bit in future. Right, so at this point, I've obviously based all the tentacles on his flesh. The sledge source has fully dried. So now what I'm doing is the last final highlight. So I'll do this 2 times over. I'll go over each of these areas twice, and I'm just now picking out all the little folds of skin, any of the little tiny edges that might need picking out. If I feel like an area, like on that flabby pectoral there towards the nipple, I feel it's a bit too flat, even with the wash on. So what I actually do is thin down paint again, and just go in and sort of dab on and sort of scratch it on with the paintbrush, and it just gives a bit more texture variation on the actual flesh itself and those big sort of flat areas. And it's just a case now of going around, picking out everything, and we go from there. So this, what I'll do, I'll leave this little bit of footage running. This is the last clip that I've recorded, because all the little stuff like his weapon, the horns, the base and everything, this video is all about the flesh and that recipe that I've honed from the previous week's video, and got it to work much better in this case. I feel like this looks more sickly and a little bit more disgusting than last week's, and not quite as patchy. So it was just to show that off and the process, and practice on something before you commit to a nice miniature, especially if you want it to do it for a display or maybe for a gift, or in this case a competition. Go and try different things. The process for the base, it was pretty simple. I was basically just wet blending a load of different colours from greens and browns and a load of the blood effects, and then really simply I just doused it in UV resin, painted it all over, used the UV light to set it all, and then just went back in at the end with some blood effects, and then all the teeth and the horns very simply done. A bit of ivory, a wash, and then just pick out the highlights. Nothing sort of dramatic on there. The final sort of product, which you'll see in a sec with the finished shots, I'm really happy with it. It looks absolutely disgusting and gross, and that's what I think. If you're going to do a grimdark style, that's what it should be. I'm very biased because I also love the sculpt. I think, as I said, I think it's better than the GW one. The GW one looks a bit too comical for me, not not gross or serious enough, and it's got like a big silly grin on it, and the flesh doesn't look like flesh. It just almost looks like a weird skin cloak that it's wearing. Whereas this sculpt, this looks like a gnarly monster. If you see this on the battlefield, you don't have anything to do with it. But as I say, I am extremely biased. I love this print. When I saw it, I fell in love with it and ordered it straight away. But yeah, we'll show the finished shots now. Let me know what you think. Was this sort of video helpful, where I'm working on a process the previous week and then showing the finished results the week after, or would you prefer it all in one video? Just to let people know, because I have had a few asks, so the skeleton came 4th in the end in the little competition. Now that one, as I said, I rushed it a little bit to get it in on time, and but I was happy with 4th, and the people above me were fantastic. The paint jobs were as well. This one, I say, is being entered. I don't know how it's going to do. Hopefully it gets received well. I feel like I might have pushed the grossness a little bit too much, but hey ho. But yeah, let me know what you think. Do you enjoy this longer form of video where I'm leaving more of the footage in, and just so you can see, effectively see the working out that I'm doing on the miniature as I'm going round. And thank you all very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.